India carries a civilizational inheritance spanning thousands of years. Languages, philosophies, sciences, spiritual traditions, and systems of law that govern social conduct long before any modern constitution even existed. Today, we are the world's largest democracy. By sheer scale and diversity, that alone is remarkable. Yet, the question persists: is India truly a democracy? Not in the procedural sense, elections happen, votes are counted, governments form, but in the substantive sense, do the people function as sovereign? The answer is uncomfortable. Now, no democracy is perfect, but for one to function, the people, the demos, must hold the concept of their own supremacy at the core of their thinking. And here we fail. Not because the Constitution is flawed, but because something far older than the Constitution still operates inside our minds. Now, before we examine what the Constitution promises, we must understand what it was fighting against. Ancient legal texts treated opposition to the king not as political disagreement, but as a punishable offense. Here's a simplified verse from the Dharmashastric traditions. Rajnyaha kosha apahartrinshcha प्रतिकूलेषु च स्थितान् घातेर विविधैर दंडैर arinam cha upajapakan. This means those who rob the royal treasury, those who persist in active opposition, and those who conspire with or instigate the king's enemies shall be punished by the king using various forms of coercive penalty. Note the language here. Pratikuleshu chasthitan. Those who stand in opposition or those who remain counter to the ruler's position. This wasn't reserved for treasonous plots. It included sustained political dissent. The grammar treats opposition itself as a category alongside theft and espionage, all equally worthy of punishment. The Manusmriti provided the legal enforcement apparatus. Chroniclers, on the other hand, were court appointed. History was written by those obligated to sing praises of kings and their rule. Dissent was dangerous, praise was obligatory. What would you pick? This wasn't merely ancient history, this was the civilizational substrate that independence inherited. The Constitution replaced the king with the people, but the DNA didn't update. The preamble of our Constitution begins with three words: we the people, not we the government, not we the rulers. Sovereignty resides in the collective citizenry. The framers established a clear hierarchy of authority. The president and the governor as nominal heads of state acting on ministerial advice, representing the collective people. The MPs, MLAs are representatives who are elected for fixed terms, removable by the electorate. The ministers are public servants, legally classified as such under statutes. The judiciary as independent arbiters who owe duty to the Constitution, and the police officers as law enforcement officers, whose duty is to uphold law and protect the public. Accountability mechanisms were baked in. Elections every 5 years, no confidence motions, right to information, public interest litigation, impeachment processes, controller and auditor general oversight, and parliamentary committees. Fundamental rights were also guaranteed: equality before law. That's Article 14. Free speech and association, Article 19. Life and personal liberty, Article 21. The framers knew exactly what they were doing, flattening millennia of hierarchical conditioning in a single document. But design is not delivery. And the machinery inherited from the colonial rule was never rebuilt to match this design. The Republic of India inherited almost the entire apparatus of governance from the British colonial state and largely kept it running with relabeled components. The Indian Civil Services became the Indian Administrative Service, that's IAS. The Indian Police Service, or IPS, remained fundamentally unchanged. And the Indian Police Act of 1861, a statute literally designed to enable colonial power to suppress a subject population, remains the foundational framework for Indian policing to this day. The Police Act of 1861 that remains intact, governing police organization, hierarchy, and accountability. It centralizes the command structure, lacks civilian oversight mechanisms, gives wide discretionary powers to police officers, and has no independent complaints authority. None of that changed. Amit Kilor, in an interview with Raj Shamani, reframed what Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel once called the steel frame of India, the civil services. Kilor called it the steel cage of India instead. His argument: the Brits used these two wings, that is, the civil services and police, to achieve three objectives. One, extract revenue, that's taxation and land revenue collection, and therefore the term collector. Limit information flow, control what knowledge reaches the subjects. And three, control behavior, ensure compliance through the threat of force. Once independent, the structure remained. The labels changed, not the incentives. Kilode also notes the social transformation that occurs upon induction. An IAS officer who traveled the country just a few days ago as an ordinary citizen now moves as a VIP, with red beacon privileges, protocol vehicles, and armed escorts. A constable who might have smacked them for not wearing a helmet yesterday stands in attention and salutes today. The system doesn't just grant powers, it reshapes identities. This isn't conspiracy. This is an institutional architecture designed for control, not service. The Collector Sahib, the SP, the DGP were all colonial command roles built for rulers governing over subjects, not for public servants operating under sovereign citizens. The Constitution changed the theoretical apex of the pyramid. It did not restructure the pyramid itself. The Supreme Court recognized this in Prakash Singh versus Union of India, directing structural reforms to insulate police from political interference. The states largely ignored the judgment. The machinery continued running the same way it always had, answerable to the office bearers, not to the citizenry. Add to this the linguistic inertia: Sarkar in Hindi, Archi in Tamil, Prabhutvam in Telugu, ruling party, regime. Every one of these terms encodes a ruler ruled relationship. When journalists refer to elected representatives as leaders and governments as regimes, they are unconsciously reinforcing a hierarchy that the Constitution explicitly rejected. The word leader implies someone who commands from above. A representative serves from among. Why? Pick the title of the recent film Jananayagan, a rather vulgar wordplay which demonstrates this issue really beautifully. Jananayagan means people's leader, which is wrong. Jananayakam, which is a single word, means leadership by the people, which is correct, and it stands for democracy. Layered beneath this institutional inertia is something deeper: a cultural grammar of deference shaped over millennia. Caste stratification, feudal landlord tenant dynamics, monarchical traditions, the Guru Shishya Parampara, all encoded hierarchy into the civilizational DNA. The Constitution attempted a radical flattening, but a Constitution can rewrite law overnight. It cannot rewrite cultural conditioning that took shape over thousands of years in the same stroke. So, when a district magistrate visits a village, the residents stand up. They fold their hands. They call him Sahib or Sir. And the DM, raised in the same cultural soil, accepts the deference instinctively. The Constitution says they are equals. The culture says that they are not. On the ground, culture wins more often than the Constitution does. Yesterday, a political satire group mobilized thousands of students across Delhi demanding the resignation of the education minister and reforms to the examination system following multiple paper leak scandals. The movement centered on an indefinite strike by an activist who fasted for more than 20 days. What happened next exposed the gap between constitutional promise and operational reality. The government did not negotiate with the protesters until much later, when a hurried 10-minute meeting was organized with Mr. JP Nadda, the Union Minister for Health and Family Welfare, and the Union Minister for Chemicals and Fertilizers. Not the Prime Minister, not the Home Minister, not even the party president. It did not engage with the demands. Instead, authorities moved the fasting activist to a hospital by force after a court order citing medical concerns. Police used batons to disperse demonstrators attempting to march towards the parliament. Thousands were prevented from reaching the legislature. Observations emerged from the scene that raised troubling questions about accountability. Reports suggested that some personnel deployed at the protest site wore uniforms without visible name tags. The implications are significant. If officials wear identification that cannot be traced, accountability becomes impossible. The government gains plausible deniability. Those weren't our personnel, they could say. Citizens harmed cannot file complaints against unknown officers. The chain of responsibility dissolves. Whether these reports are fully verified or remain under investigation is secondary. What matters is the pattern that they point toward. The state has grown comfortable ignoring peaceful protests and deploying force to suppress public dissent. The accountability mechanisms, the courts, the press, the opposition have proven inadequate to check this drift. This isn't speculation. This is the latest manifestation of a structural problem. The same colonial era police act that legitimized suppression of subjects in 1861 still governs police organization in 2026. The same cultural conditioning that taught villagers to fold hands before district magistrates still operates. And now, the same institutional architecture that extracted revenue and controlled information under the British continues to function. Only now, it shields elected representatives from the people who elected them, effectively enabling them to behave as colonizers rather than accountable public servants. The gap between constitutional design and operational reality is not subtle. It is measurable, structural, and perpetuated by both institutional architecture and cultural conditioning. The worst commanding punishment for those who persist in opposition finds its modern echo in sedition laws, police violence, and the social sanctions faced by those who question power.